She was in the middle of the road when her car had just died. She tried restarting it, but to no avail. She was another 30 minutes from home and was unable to call for help as her phone had also died. She got out of her car but regretted her decision when she realized she was in the bad part of town. Three teenagers approached her before she could ask for help, and she froze. What were their intentions? Jane McQuillan worked at a restaurant in her small Texas town. The middle-aged woman enjoyed her job and worked toward her goal of one day opening her own restaurant. Her neighbors, colleagues, and regular customers all loved her. She had an upbeat personality that they couldn't help but like. She was always in a good mood, and she admired that. But they couldn't see beneath the surface. Jane was a single mother to her daughter Jamie. She kept it under wraps, but she struggled to raise her. Life hasn't been the same since their divorce. However, Jane was a tough woman who would do anything she could for her daughter. Her life was important because she used it for everything on a daily basis. She couldn't afford to lose it. It was hard for Jane to make sure her daughter was taken care of. Her ex-husband couldn't pay her child support after he lost his job, and she had to make up for the loss. Eventually, she felt she had to find another job. She managed to find one for the evening shift, but it meant driving through a bad area to get there. This didn't bother her, much as she always believed in the good in people, but she never expected her faith to be challenged in this way. The pressure of taking care of her little girl and working two jobs became overwhelming for Jane. Anyone would collapse under the pressure, no matter how hard it was. Despite her friendliness and frequent smiles, Jane had fallen into a pit of depression over everything she had on her plate. But there was more. Jane wanted the best for her family and would do anything for them. That meant putting up a fight with no intention of backing down. Her family supported her while she sought help to get through the worst. She'd been given a new schedule that helped her manage her time better so she didn't feel overwhelmed. Things were looking good, but Jane never expected what was around the corner. Jane believed that despite their struggles, everyone had good in them. She thought no one should ever be convicted because it was difficult to know what they were dealing with. But when her car broke down on the way home from work, her faith was tested. She would question her beliefs while feeling frozen as three suspicious teenagers approached her. The evening shift wasn't easy to work, but Jane needed the money. It was an uncomfortable job because she lost time with her daughter, and she lost even more for herself. To make matters worse, the late shift meant a dangerous journey home. The town was small, which meant they had no route other than through the notorious neighborhood. Jane didn't often worry about traveling around the area, but she couldn't help panicking when her car broke down in the middle of the so-called bad neighborhood. She was too dependent on her car and could not afford to lose her car. Her life would be turned upside down again if she lost it. That was the first thing she thought of. The second was her safety as she saw the teenagers approaching. As the three teenagers approached their car, Jane looked for a way out. The three boys had seen their car pull up in the middle of the street while they were loitering in the area, and they quickly decided to head towards it. A car stopped in the middle of the street in the dark, and they didn't see their neighborhood very often. By the time she saw the three teenagers approach her car, Jane had already got out and was looking for help. But apart from the boys, there was nobody on the street. The woman was afraid. She didn't know what their intentions were and what they were doing on the street so late at night. What could she do? Then the most unexpected happened. When the group of teenagers saw the woman on the street with smoke from her engine, they decided to get out and help. The three teenagers, Billy Tarbett, Bailey Campbell, and Aaron McJames, met the lady around midnight as they were going to a fast food joint for a bite to eat. They stopped near her car and asked her if she needed help. Jane thanked them, but told them she didn't know what to do. Maybe they'll borrow her phone so she can call someone to tow her car. One of the guys was good at cars and said it didn't look too bad. It just needs a little push. So all three guys started pushing the car until the engine started again. Jane was happiest when she saw the car driving again. She thanked the boys and went home. When Jane came home, she was overjoyed. She never expected something like this to happen, especially around here. But at the same time, she always had hope that people always have the best of intentions. She was right. The three boys just wanted to help. And maybe the reputation of this neighborhood wasn't so accurate. Jane was so touched by the event that she took to social media and posted her story. It was soon shared by thousands of people. People from their city and even across the country were touched by the events and said these guys are a role model for every teenager out there. Everyone should behave like this. To protect the privacy of those depicted, some names, locations, and identifiers have been changed and are the product of the author. 7. Imagination. Any resemblance to actual events or places, or persons living or dead, is purely coincidental.